Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be going through my Lamb of God discography ranking. This is going to be a fun one. I've really enjoyed revisiting these albums. It's been a very surprising one for me as well, because a lot of these albums, I was pretty sure that I knew exactly where all of these were going to sit in the ranking, but going back and listening to them all, I've actually changed my opinion on a few of them. Some for the better, some for the worse. So this is going to be a fun one anyway. I do have a tendency to go on, so let's just get straight into this. I am going to include Burn the Priest. I know it's not a Lamb of God album, but it does feature 4 members of the band. It's everybody apart from Willie Adler, which is a glaring omission. Obviously, he's a huge part of Lamb of God, a huge contributor in terms of the riffs and the songwriting, so it's not nothing. But if you do listen to this and New American Gospel, it's clearly the same band. However, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. It's more of a context thing, I guess. This one will be going in D. It's very influenced by death metal and grindcore, both of which I absolutely love. The production leaves a lot to be desired. The opening track, Bloodletting, is a really good song, and there's some okay stuff on it, but overall it's an okay album. It's not one that I return to. However, up next we have New American Gospel. This was released, when was it? September 26th, 2000 on Prosthetic Records. I should have said it actually as well, but Burn the Priest was released on April 4th, 1999. By Legion Records. This one actually took me off guard quite a bit. First of all, I was really shocked at how much I enjoyed listening to this album, and even more than that, I was actually really shocked at how well I knew this album. I'm sure you guys have found that, you go back and listen through a discography, maybe there's an album that you don't, you kind of didn't really think that you knew that well. I knew all of these songs, I knew every part of them, I knew the sequencing as well, I knew what song was coming up next, so I obviously listened to it a hell of a lot more than I thought I did back in the day. Let's just have a quick look at the track listing. I mean, Black Label, absolute classic. I don't know if that's one that they play live nowadays, but they used to be a big part of their set. I think a lot of you, any of you who are Lamb of God's fans, you would have remembered seeing that footage of Randy doing the Braveheart thing, telling both sides of the audience to hold, as the wall of death everybody just ran straight at each other. Fantastic. A Warning is a good song. Letter to the Unborn, that's a dark tune. The Black Dahlia, Terran Hubris, In the House of Frank Lampard, is it? Frank Lampard? Frank Lampard. Pariah's a great song. ODHGABFE. I believe that stands for Officer Dickhead Gets a Black Fucking Eye, if I remember rightly. Nippon Flux. I mean, this is a great album. I genuinely enjoyed going back and listening to this one, though. Like I said, the production is not the greatest, but it kind of suits it in a weird way. And in a strange way, they actually had more of their own identity on this album than some of the ones that are upcoming. I don't know if that makes sense, but it does to me. This is actually going to go in B tier. I was very happy with this. I really enjoyed listening to this one. Great album. Now we start getting into some of the albums that this is when Lamb of God really becomes Lamb of God. Released May 6th, 2003. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Oh, did you just move that, you twat? Released on May the 6th, 2003, As the Palaces Burn. This was on Prosthetic Records. This had a hell of a production story behind it. Any of you seen the documentary that came along with the 10th anniversary edition, I think it was? Very good viewing. It's very interesting documentary. Devin Townsend was brought in to do the production, and what could go wrong did go wrong. There is a sound to this album that was not intended, but I do actually enjoy. Let's again go through the track listing. Ruin is an absolute banger. As the Palaces Burn is an absolutely amazing tune. 11th Hour is one of my favourite Lamb of God songs. Bootscaper. There's so many great songs on this. Vigil is an amazing song to finish the album. You've got that real slow, sombre build-up that goes into a real sludgy Sabbath type of riff before really exploding in the back half of the song, going to this really fast-paced riff that it always goes down well live. This album is pretty much perfect for me. There's not a bad song on it, in my opinion. I know a lot of people say that maybe from 7, 8, 9 those songs sort of start to kind of feel like filler a bit. But I don't think so. I've always thought there was something very special about this album. This is a band that were really coming into their own, firing on all cylinders. They went from the previous album where they were all still working day jobs and still trying to, well, they were still working day jobs on this album. I've gone on long enough. As the Palaces Burn for me goes in S tier. It's going to be absolutely no surprise to anybody. Truly enjoy this album immensely. There's not a bad song on it in my opinion. The production works for me. I enjoy it, and when I do listen to it, I actually listen to the old version, not the remix. Next up we got Ashes of the Wake, which came out on August the 31st 2004, and this is their first to be released on a major label, this in this case Epic Records. I've actually done a full review, a classic album review of this one, so make sure that you check. Well, that will be coming out in a couple of days depending on when you watch this, so I'm going to talk a lot about it in there. This album is, again, like As the Palaces Burn, many consider these two albums to be their best, and I'm no different, in all honesty. I gained a new appreciation for this album because I was analysing the lyrics and I realised just how intense and dark and serious they really were, and you know, there's just something. I mean, Laid to Rest, again, let's have a look at the Laid to Rest, absolute classic. Any guitar player out there, soon, you know, if you're a guitar player like me, as soon as I heard that riff I wanted to learn it immediately. Hourglass is an absolute banger. Now You've Got Something to Die For, another one with an immediately recognisable riff to it. The Faded Liner, Murder, of course, the those spoken word intro from Randy with the Code of Silence, is it, from the Sicilian Mafia. Blood of the Scribe, One Gun, Break You. I mean, the song Ashes of the Wake itself is so sombre, so dark as well, because even though it's an instrumental piece, they include this. They include the snippet of an interview from the Marine Sergeant, something Massey, I believe his name was. I did the review yesterday, I should remember. Jimmy Massey, maybe? I don't know. Really dark, and Remorses for the Dead, very similar to Vigil in that it starts out with this sombre, clean intro before just bang going into the rest of the song. Now, if I'd have done this ranking this time last week, As the Palaces Burn would have been my top album, but I've actually got a new appreciation for this after doing the review, and Ashes of the Wake goes to the top of S tier. There's not a great deal in. You know, there's not a great deal between the two. They're still, you know, absolute peak Lamb of God, but it does just pip it to the post. And the production is just, even though I like the production of As the Palaces Burn, there's something, you know, very cold and unique about it. This is the better sounding album, and it's just, you know, every song's great. Now we move on to Sacrament, August 22nd, 2006, again on Epic Records and Prosthetic Records as well. I think it was, I don't know if, I guess that's in Europe or whatever. Let's take a look at the track listing for this one. This is actually the first album of theirs I ever bought. I kind of tried to get into Lamb of God, but I couldn't do, for whatever reason. I think we all, you know, we've all had that. There's bands that you try out and whatever, it just didn't click straight away. I bought this album and it was the one with the DVD, the making of. I listened to the album and I was kind of like, yeah, there's some okay songs. Then a couple of weeks later, I dug out the DVD. Well, I didn't dig it out, I just took it out and watched it. And there was something about getting to know their personalities that made the music click. Do you know what I mean? And I went and listened to it again, and I've just been a fan ever since. I say that, and we'll get into that. Walk With Me in Hell is probably my favourite Lamb of God song. It's just amazing. It never ceases to. It's one of those songs. Whenever if I've got, you know, if I've got a playlist on shuffle and that song comes on, I'm not skipping it. It's just a great song. Again, We Rise is a decent enough song. Redneck, of course, it's a bit cheesy in many ways, but it's still a decent enough song. However, this album was an odd one because I loved this when I first got it, but listening back to it, it wasn't as strong as I remember it being. Like Foot to the Throat, Requiem. Well, actually, having said that, there's some pretty good stuff on here. Pathetic's great. Descending is a great song. Black and the Cursed Sun, Forgotten, Lost Angels. Beating on Death's Door is a fantastic end to it. See, I'm doubting myself again now. For me, this goes in A tier. Very good album. Not as strong as it used to be in my opinion, but still a lot of good songs on there. Probably a good, was it 11 songs on there? Yeah, 11 songs on there. I'd say 8 of them, 8 of the 11 are actually really, really strong songs. Next up we have Wrath, which came out February 23rd, 2009. Again, oh no, this time on Epic and Roadrunner Records. This is a really great album. This was a great follow-up. Remember, you've got the passing, you know, kind of nice little intro piece, just a 2-minute kind of instrumental section before going into In Your Words. I always loved the outro to that song. Remember hearing it for the first time, and there was just so much melody going on in the outro to that song. Love it. Set to Fail is a great one. Contractor, kind of similar to Vigil, although this one starts out like just hits you in the face right from the very off. It still has that kind of similar Vigil type vibe. When it gets to the midsection and the riff just really speeds up. Fake Messiah is great. Grace has got that beautiful clean intro, so I've always tried to learn that. I've never managed to nail it properly, but then the rest of the song was really great. So I was reading Broken Hands. Reclamation, the end song as well, is a really, really strong song. Broken Hands is a great song. Dead Seeds. This is another one that's pretty much, I would say, how many songs we got here? 11. Again, out of the entire album, I'd say that we've got another one with, say, a good 8 really strong songs out of the 11. So this one for me also goes in A tier, and I'd actually put this above Sacrament. Come on, if I can do. Why won't you let me? Maybe Sacrament instead. There you go, that was easier. Yeah, another very strong album. Next up we have Resolution, released on February the 24th, 2012, again on Epic and Roadrunner. And now we start getting some interesting territory here, because this was the start of me actually losing interest in the band for a while. I remember getting this album and not being that into it. I always loved the beginning of the album, but I kind of found myself fading out on it a bit. However, upon re-listening to it, I really enjoy this album. It starts out really strong. Let's get the track listing up. Starts out with Straight for the Sun. I remember really being impressed by this when I heard it. Really slow, dirgy, sludgy Sabbath kind of slow riff that really just, you know, it was something different. Desolation, I've always loved that song. There's a great, in the As the Palaces Burn documentary, not the making of the album, but the actual the documentary of Randy with all the issues that happen in Prague. There's a great scene where he gets released from bail and he comes back over to the States, and they play for the first time live again, and they start playing this song. The band is on stage, and then Randy comes out last, and the audience just erupts because everybody's so happy to see him, and it always just gives me good vibes when I see that. But Ghost Walking is an absolute banger. That riff is just amazing. The Undertow is a great song. The Number 6 is an amazing song. I can't believe I didn't get into that one before. So damn good. Barbarossa is a nice little sort of acoustic piece. There were a couple of songs towards the back half that kind of still kind of feel, I wouldn't go as far as filler, but very formulaic. But King Me is an absolute beast of a song to end the album with. I was really, really happy with this album, hearing it again, because this was the start of me kind of writing the band off. I kind of started losing interest with them around this time, but going back and listening to it, I had a real good time listening to that. And this is going to go in B tier, at the top of B tier for now. This might actually climb up, because now that I'm gonna give this a lot more listens. But yeah, fantastic. Next up we have Sturm and Drang, released in 2015. I don't actually have a date for this for some reason. Now this is another one that I really didn't care for that much. I remember buying it when it came out, and I listened to it, and there was a couple of good songs again, but much like the previous album, this one kind of just passed me by as well. And this was the start of me completely losing interest in the band. However, this is another one that I really, really enjoyed, and again, I can't believe I didn't. Sometimes you go through that though, right? You know, you're really into a band, you're listening to it all the time, and then sometimes the albums just hit at a time when you just, maybe you just started getting into some other style of music or whatever, and you're all about that, and this kind of just passes you by. Then you go back and listen to it, and it's a really good one. This was written after all of the issues in Prague, obviously, so a lot of the lyrical content addresses all of that stuff. The album starts very strong with Still Echoes, very enjoyable song. Erase This is fantastic as well. Love the use of the voice box on the guitar solo for that one. 512 is a very infectious chorus, which when you actually consider it's about his time in prison in Prague, it's kind of a strange thing really to be that catchy about such dark subject matter. Embers is great, features Chino from the Deftones. Footprints was okay. Overlord I found a bit boring, but the back half of the song is great. It erupts again, very reminiscent of Vigil or Contractor. Engage the Fear Machine is a decent song. Torches featuring Greg from Dillinger is an interesting song. Apparently Randy said it was about a Czech man in the 60s who committed self-immolation to protest the Russian occupation. So yeah, pretty deep lyrics. Again, we got a couple of tracks. I should have gotten the track listing up for you, shouldn't I? There were a couple of songs within there that kind of, again, kind of disappear into the background a bit. Nightmare Seeker is an okay closer, but it's nowhere near as strong as King Me on the previous album. However, again, I really enjoyed this album way more than I thought I would. So this one is again going in B tier, and I'll put it just behind Resolution, because I did enjoy that album a lot. But there you go, 2 albums that I'd previously written off, and now I get to listen to a lot, so that's great. It's always good to have another album, right? Now we get into the self-titled album, which came out in 2020. I didn't bother with this album at all. I think I listened to a couple of the tracks. These last 2 albums are the only 2 albums of theirs I don't own, because I didn't bother with them at this point. And I'm sad to say that this one didn't really do that much for me when I was listening to it again. This is the first one with Art Cruz taking over on the drums. Chris Adler had left the band by this point. He's a great drummer, he fits the band very well, but this wasn't an inspired, it doesn't feel like an inspired album to me. Let's take a look at the track listing. Memento Mori starts everything off really strong. I remember liking that song when I heard it. Checkmate and Gears are okay, but they're standard Lamb of God, they just kind of pass you by. Reality Bath, I enjoyed. New Class for Hate is alright. Resurrection Man is a great song. I really enjoyed Randy's vocals on that, and there's this really nice mid-paced sort of chuggy riff on it. I like that one a lot. I didn't really have, I've not got too many notes on this one really, because there wasn't a huge amount of them that leaped out to me. There's some okay stuff on it, but I don't think it's uncommon for people to have this one ranked quite low. I don't think it's quite D tier, but I would put it in C tier. Yeah, it just kind of felt uninspired in a way, I don't know. And then finally we get Omens, released in 2022. This one, again, I didn't bother with this one at all. Very pleasantly surprised with this. Really happy that I listened to this album again. Well, for the first time, should I say. And yeah, there was a lot that I found to enjoy on this one. Kind of really feels like the band have got a new energy, a vigour behind them, a real good energy behind this album. Let's get the track listing up. Nevermore, a fantastic start to the album. Really enjoyed that. Vanishing does a great job of maintaining the energy. To the Grave has a really good groove to it. Ditch is a fantastic song. It's probably my favourite song on the album. I really enjoy that. Such a great chorus on it. The title track is decent enough. I remember watching the documentary for this, and they had tons of pretty big guest stars on it, and they just chant Omens on the chorus. It kind of just feels like a bit of a lost something. Again, we get a couple of not so memorable songs in there. Not bad songs, but just kind of, standard Lamb of God fare. But the album finishes really strong with September Song, which is a cracking song. So I wouldn't by any means say this is one of their best albums, but I would put this in B tier. as well. And to be honest, when I look at it, when I look at that ranking, that does actually kind of make sense to me, that you've got a lot kind of in the middle, because Lamb of God are one of those bands, they have become very formulaic in their sound. You kind of know what you're going to get with them. Not saying that's bad at all, because what they do incredibly well. But a band like Mastodon, for example, one of my favourite bands, every single album they do, there's one point, there's one point on the album where you just go, what the hell is that? You know, there's a few of those peppered throughout the discography, but that kind of makes sense to me. Nothing really bad there, though. I would happily listen to all of those albums, even Burn the Priest. And as I said, it's actually been really great for me to listen to all this, because those last 4 albums that I completely wrote off, I've actually found there's a lot to enjoy in there. So that was really good. It was worth doing that discography, this discography, should I say, just for that alone, and the views. By this point, I've been talking for a very long time. I'm going to leave it there. Like I said, I do have a full classic album review for Ashes of the Wake. If it's not out already, it will be in a couple of days, depending on when you watch this. It's a good one. I'm really happy with how it came out. I've already recorded it. I haven't edited it together yet, but it's a fun one. I'm really, really happy with it, and it's really gave me a new appreciation for that album. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one, and I don't know, maybe I'll start taking requests for discography rankings. I don't really have anything planned right now. Anyway, that'll do for it. See, I'm going on again. I'll see you later. You guys, leave me alone. Squeaky chair.